To the US now, and Covid-19 hospitalisations seem to be levelling off in New York State, the epicentre of the pandemic there. The Centre for Disease Control has figures showing that America's had 370,000 plus cases of coronavirus and more than 12,000 deaths. New York State accounts for more than a third of the infections and half of the fatalities, with more than 800 people dying in one 24-hour period. Today, President Trump blamed the World Health Organization for getting every aspect of the pandemic wrong and threatened to withhold funding from the organisation before seemingly backtracking. I asked the BBC's North America correspondent Jon Sopel what it's like in New York.
It is dire, and there was a record number of deaths today. And so, if you look at that alone, it's a very bleak picture. And we got access to some film material, inside an ICU, an intensive care unit in Brooklyn, in the financial capital of the richest country in the world. The nurses in there were wearing bin liners as personal protective equipment. I kid you not. I mean, it was absolutely shocking, the degree to which this was an intensive care unit where everything seemed to be on the edge and on the edge of falling apart, you felt. Now, so deaths, high. However, the more important indicators to look at, and this may sound a sort of callous thing to say, but is the number of new hospital admissions, the number of new diagnoses of cases. And it does seem to be that New York now is at the peak of it. And of course, the people that are dying are probably people who've been on ventilators for the past 2 to 3 weeks and have been admitted to hospital a long time ago. And so it's the number of people being admitted that is the more realistic figure to look at, because the death total is a lagging indicator, and the deaths will keep on going up even when you're at the peak of the curve and you're coming down the other side.
You talk about the intensive care unit there and the kind of images that we're seeing. Personal protective equipment is in high demand the world over at the moment. But stories are filtering out of the States about, some interesting things that are happening with shipments. What can you tell us about that?
Well, I mean, it's nuts. It's bonkers. Apparently, it's alleged that the government has managed to get, the US administration has managed to get, masses of equipment, but it's being distributed to private companies in the US. Remember, the US is a federal system. There are 50 states, and they are competing against each other to get hold of vital masks, gowns, these N95 masks, face visors, gloves, all the rest, the whole panoply of the kit that people need. And these 50 states are driving up the price against each other. And so you get Nebraska trying to outbid Oklahoma, Texas trying to do one over on Connecticut, and so it goes on. And this is because, broadly in America, in normal times, you don't have a health service. You have a health sector, just like you have an aerospace sector or a telco sector or whatever other financial sector it happens to be. And so you have states now in a position where they are fighting each other to get hold of equipment. And it is a real structural fault. And the president says, I don't want to get involved in this. This is our federal system. I'm a great upholder of the Constitution. Maybe a slightly selective view that the president has on the Constitution, and I'm not going to fight this corner.
We're all in lockdown here at the moment, all around the country in New Zealand. What is President Trump's position on whether there should be a nationwide lockdown in the US?
Well, so where I'm speaking to you from now, I'm in Washington, D.C. The first sign of a lockdown came down 3 weeks ago. Then there was another lockdown, and 44 other states, I think I'm right in saying, have also gone into lockdown, restricting the movements, closing, everything down, no gatherings of more than 10 people. But there are 6 states where that hasn't happened, all run by Republican governors. Now, de facto, I mean, they are operating in a way where there is more or less a lockdown. Shops are being told to close, but there are other areas where, here we have the holiest week in the Christian calendar, Easter week, and this weekend in some states there are going to be huge crowds going to church, where people will be in the pews sitting next to each other. Now, that has to be crazy when the one weapon you have got at the moment against coronavirus, in the absence of a vaccine, is social distancing. And there is not going to be any social distancing. Florida only introduced it, this shutdown a week ago. Over the Easter break, there were thousands of young kids on the beaches partying away, and it was a petri dish for coronavirus to spread. And so, but the president is saying, I'm not going to tell these 6 other states what to do. Now, if you think about the logistics of this, the problem you've got is Donald Trump has a very noble ambition, of course, that he wants this to be over with as soon as possible and to be able to reopen the country and get people back to work so that they're getting a paycheck coming in. Fine. But, New York may be over the worst of it. New Jersey may be over the worst of it. San Francisco, Washington State, LA may be over the worst of it. But if you've got other states, because of kind of carelessness, about to go into it, how do you reopen the economy? And it just, I think, is likely to prolong the agony for the United States. Because, yes, it's a vast country, but if you've got people moving from New York to, Oklahoma or wherever it happens to be, and they're carrying the virus with them, they're spreading the virus, and so you've got no control. And I think that this is where there is a logical flaw, and that is why Tony Fauci, who is the president's chief medical advisor, is saying there should be a nationwide shutdown, and Donald Trump is saying there shouldn't be.
Just before we go, what are you doing for Easter?
Every day is the same. I will be here in Washington. I'll probably try and get some exercise. I will go meet my cameraman every now and then to file reports. All my voice work I'm doing from my apartment. I think Easter will feel much like today. I don't think there'll be an Easter hunt for an Easter egg. I think it will be an Easter egg-free Easter for me.
Oh, I don't know, John. I don't know, because our Prime Minister, Jacinda Ardern, has made an announcement this week that the Easter Bunny is an essential worker.
I know. Well, the Easter Bunny, I'm very pleased to hear. And, and there was a big piece, you should know, there was a big piece in the Washington Post about your Prime Minister today and how, there's a sense that New Zealand is showing the rest of the world how this should be dealt with.
And that's the BBC's Jon Sopel.